Eli Wilde. This is Tony Robbins' sales trainer. He is now the creator of Impact Influence. He has made $100 million for Tony Robbins, and he is honestly the best salesperson I have met. How did your story begin?
Grew up in a small town. Dad was put in a wheelchair when I was really young. I experienced a lot of trauma, sexual abuse, all of that. So I didn't really speak until I was in the fourth grade. They put me in class with mentally handicapped kids. I was really weird in every way. In middle school, high school, I started to like girls and really began to watch some movies and shows that excited my imagination. I'd watch a show and think like, what would it be like to be that character? Much like an actor, had several relationships in my life with women that were doing huge things in the world. Throughout this process, doors started to open. I find myself living in Los Angeles. I had a job in sales. I got cast to be Superman in the movie Superman Returns. They trained me for the role for about 6 months, and then I just quit showing up one day. And I knew there was something deeper, and I got into studying NLP and really going deep into the internal patterns of emotion and meaning that really develop our sense of self and identity. And back then I really didn't know who I was. I was mentioning to a friend and he goes, "You should check out Tony Robbins." I was like, "Who's Tony Robbins?" And then when I heard Tony, there was this voice and this energy and all this stuff. And I found myself being caught in this. And I was like, I don't know what this guy is on, but I want some of that.
If you were to give that one key to the listener that will just unlock their empire, what would that key be? Hello, Queen. Welcome back with Keys to the Queendom. I'm so excited for this guest speaker that you are going to absolutely froth on. Make sure you're going for a walk or you're at the gym. If you're having one of those days where you're like, fuck sales, fuck bringing in clients, fucking never works. When you listen to this guy, Eli Wilde, ladies and gentlemen, this is Tony Robbins' sales trainer. He is now the creator of Impact Influence. This man has solely made $12 million in 30 minutes. He has made $100 million for Tony Robbins, and he is honestly the best salesperson I have met. Not a guru, not a mentor. He's a sales trainer. And what I love about his concept of this, he uses Neuro-Linguistic Programming, which is essentially the master of influence, right? I've had my NLP training done. If you guys haven't and you're new to building a business or you're a coach and you really want to master, thought-provoking questions, language, this is something that I would really encourage you guys to dive into. But first and foremost, I am obsessed with sales. I was saying to one of my partners, I don't have partners. I was saying to my partner, and I said it on Instagram the other day, some people are really drawn to celebrities. Some people are drawn to influencers, reality TV hosts, whatever it is. I love speakers. I love motivational speakers. I love people who are in sales. I love to see empowering humans who are making impact. That is honestly my jam. And I hope you guys have noticed some of the most amazing guest speakers all have one key thing. They want to serve. And selling is a serving process. It's what we're here to do. So I feel throughout this session, it's a session essentially, right? You're going to learn some incredible things around reframing your sales process, how you can really handle objections, and honestly, just having a really authentic framework when it comes to selling. He talks about what is inauthentic when it comes to the sales process. He's so big on not having scripts. But just like anyone who is mastering their craft, this gets to be an ongoing process, an ongoing thing we upskill and learn. And I want to add this one thing. It is a 24-hour thing when you are focusing on your belief system. My beautiful queens, this is Eli Wilde with an incredible, incredible episode. I literally say nothing, but I'm just in awe. You're going to love him. Enjoy, my queens. This is Eli Wilde. Welcome with Keys to the Queendom, my beautiful queens and kings. I'm here today with Eli Wilde. We've just been talking about connection, making impact, and I really want to dive into really today about authenticity, selling from stage, selling in general, especially for my beautiful female clients that I've got right now. But I think what would be really inspiring for the listeners to hear, I mean, you've worked with Tony Robbins. I've seen that you've made $100 million for him. You yourself have your own company as well, where you really are creating impact, really focusing on selling as well and making a difference in the world. So Eli, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. I'm excited to get into it.
I know your story is really impactful, and I know there's a bit of acting in there, but for the people who don't know who you are, who is Eli Wilde and how did your story begin?
I don't want to go back too far, but I'll give you the cliff notes. Grew up in a small town. Dad was put in a wheelchair when I was really young. We lived in the worst part of town. Because of that, I experienced a lot of trauma, sexual abuse, all of that. So I didn't really speak until I was in the fourth grade. They put me in class with mentally handicapped kids. I was really weird in every way. And then, through middle school, high school, I started to like girls. So I got over my weirdness a bit, started to get into my body, out of my head, and really began to, watch some movies and shows that excited my imagination, where I'd watch a show and think like, what would it be like to be that character, much like an actor. And I had several relationships in my life with women, girlfriends that really opened me up, women that were doing huge things in the world. I couldn't believe they even dated me because I was like this young, insecure guy, but they saw I had potential. And throughout this process, doors started to open. And because of one of these relationships with a girl that worked in the White House for Clinton, not Monica Lewinsky, people always ask, no, but amazing girl. She was the youngest person to ever work in the White House at her position. And she had done something called Maryland Leadership Workshops, where they taught abused children how to express themselves through art and poetry and being able to communicate. And me being such a quiet kid, living so much of my life in my head, this process of talking about my feelings and having people talk to me about their story really spoke to me about how just this process of communication can be healing and transformative and enrolling, not just into a program, but into a possibility. And before I know it, I find myself living in Los Angeles. I had a job in sales. I sucked, and I'm focused on the words and the scripts. But even though we all had the same script, selling the same product, it was a dental product, I was often at the bottom. And I would listen back to my own calls with a manager. And I think we've all had that experience of hearing our voice on like a voicemail for the first time. And you're like, oh, do I sound that bad? And then you see yourself on video for the first time. You're like, oh, do I look this weird? And I began to work on it. And around this time as well, it's a very long story short, I got cast to be Superman in the movie Superman Returns. And it was just a miracle. Like I'm at parties. This guy that I connected with set me up on a date, my first date ever set up with in LA. I didn't know who it was, but it was this girl named Jessica Alba, who was like pretty famous then, now like uber famous. And I'm with all these people, and it was a bit beyond me because my identity was, not in alignment with somebody that could be a star, but that's what I was being pitched as. And I was going through the training for the words in a language. Even there was something emotionally off in me. And I ended up just opting out of this role. I quit showing up for classes. They trained me for the role for about 6 months. And then I just quit showing up one day. And I knew there was something deeper. And I got into a studying NLP and really going deep into the internal patterns of emotion and meaning that really develop our sense of self and identity. And back then I really didn't know who I was. And I was attracted to acting partly because I didn't like who I was. And I thought it'd be cool to be somebody else or pretend to be somebody else. And that spilled over into my personal life too, where I didn't have this sense of like really even knowing who I am. And I was mentioning to a friend some of the breakthroughs I had studying NLP. And he goes, you should check out Tony Robbins. I was like, who's Tony Robbins? Next thing I know, I get the books, the CDs, the tapes. I'm jumping up and down, breath walking. I'm doing all these goofy things. And most of the sales that I had been accustomed to or speakers that I had heard, they had a script. And yes, if you're speaking for the first time, you should rehearse, you should script what you're going to say. But a lot of them sounded scripted and didn't feel authentic. And then when I heard Tony, there was this voice and this energy and all this stuff. And I found myself being caught in this. And I was like, I don't know what this guy is on, but I want some of that. And before I know it, I saw that he was speaking at this big event with like Donald Trump and Robert Kiyosaki and Susan, like all these people. And when I saw this man speak, he spoke for 2 hours. He spoke for 4.5. And at the end of it, he made an offer that was twice my rent. And I ended up buying the offer, and it was to go walk on coals and drink the Kool-Aid and all the stuff. And I was on board. And in that event, I made some decisions about my own life path and trajectory. And I saw Tony and I was like, I want to do that. And the idea to even work for Tony didn't come from me. It came from somebody that I met at the event. He said that was what he was going to do. But Tony also talked about as an event, if you're familiar with Tony, about like true commitment and how most people don't follow through and what that final edge is. And when this guy said that he was going to do it, part of me felt like he wouldn't do it. But I was like, I can and I will. And after the event, I basically harassed Tony's company, called them over 200 times in a period of weeks. But I wasn't annoying. I made people laugh. I created different connections. Before I knew it, I got an interview and I went down there. I drove from LA to San Diego using my incantations and, I'm confident and, all these things, pounding myself in the chest like Tony Robbins using his affirmations. And I went in there. They gave me a script. They said, come back in 2 weeks. Don't mess up one word. Nail this. I nailed it. And before I knew it, they put me on the road doing presentations for Tony to sell people into his events, going out to corporations and companies, doing my FSR presentation. And the same job that I had for Tony was the same job that Tony had for Jim Rohn. So he adopted the model. It's called an FSR model, field sales rep, where you go out, you book your own meetings, you knock on doors, you get doors slammed in your face, and you connect with strangers to take them from not interested to committed to ultimately having their life changed throughout this presentation. Where in sales, we get objections like time, money, think about it. It was like 45 minutes, give me all your money and 4 days of your life, and you got to fly somewhere to see some dude and go to some event you have nothing about. So we had to be really good. And within a year, I was the best on the team. And Tony's son wanted to be a speaker. And Tony said to his son, it's like one thing to be a speaker or a speech maker, but people ultimately vote with their dollars. It's one thing to get claps. It's another thing to get conversions. It's a different thing. Like to influence people, not entertain people or even educate people, but to influence and enroll people in a possibility. It's a different skill set. And he said, the first thing you need to do is get around somebody who's hungry. So he said to his son, you need to live with a top salesperson who just happened to be me at the time. And next thing I know, I'm living with Tony's son and then his brother-in-law, who now runs the company. The three of us are there and we would train and we would rehearse and really we're into it. And in sales, things don't always go your way. You get some objection or something doesn't happen the way that you want. And I had all these questions. And the question on my mind, other people would say, Eli, you did best. You're best. You're great. That person was just a douche, or that was a bad situation. But my mind and my standard was, could Tony Robbins have sold that person? And I'd be like, fuck yeah, Tony Robbins could have sold that person. And so I started asking Tony. So asking Jarek, like, can you send your dad a text or an email? Can you ask Tony, here's my situation. Can you ask him, what would he have done? And Tony would respond back to us with these voice notes that were just profound. And they helped me see all the things I wasn't seeing as far as my intention, my being, my outcome, being aligned, making my outcome their outcome, aligned, sitting on the side of the table. And there was just so many nuances that weren't just tactical, don't say this, say that, but they're conceptual in how I was being, how I was connecting, and the tools that I saw him use on stage, I began to adopt into my presentation. And every few months, I see Tony at a UPW, and I'd see him do an intervention or connect with somebody. And I'm just there taking notes like crazy. And, within enough time, very long story short, trying to land this plane, Tony announced the contest. I won it. He created an award in my name. He took me to Fiji for 5 days, had dinner with him every night. I played golf for the first time with him on his court. And I just asked him every stupid question about sales and influence and what he was doing. And I brought up specific interventions and specific times that I saw him do things on stage that I didn't understand, but I asked him why he did that, where he was doing this, why he was doing that. And he just gave me these brilliant answers. They say don't meet your heroes, but he was so kind, so sincere, so patient. And the answer, and he let me record some of the things that he said. And some of those notes became really the foundation for what I do. And that's what allowed me to, sell 9 figures, not just for Tony, but I was selling on other people's stages too, because I wanted to get good. And that was part of Tony's thing. He's like, you just don't have enough reps. And most speakers, they say want to be a speaker. They speak maybe once a month, maybe once a week. He said, you need to speak minimum twice a day, like even on weekends. He said, it's just impossible to get really good unless you're doing that. He's like, you need like your first 1,000 presentations, like you're just getting warmed up. And now I've done thousands and thousands and thousands, and I've trained, hundreds of people on the process. And so a lot of it is just getting the reps in because then you're not self-conscious. You're conscious of your audience, and you're not in your head. You can fully be with people because you're not thinking about yourself and what you're going to say. You're creating this connection. You're creating these frames that we'll get into. And it was quite a process. And so, long story short, that's kind of my background. And then from there, my sales numbers were always 3 to 5 times everybody else's. And I remember I joined Taki Moore's group, and Taki was like, well, why don't you share what you do? And I remember he had me get up and speak in London, and they do like these 10-minute things, or they bring in like these samurai sessions, and they extended mine like indefinitely. They were like, just go. And this like, just do the thing. And Taki I love Taki. He's so great and was really supportive. And then other people started saying, hey, can you show me how you're doing this, or can you coach my team? And a lot of it was the soft skills, because I'm like, anybody can give you a script or tell you what to say, but we all have had the experience. Two people can say hi to you at a bar or hi on the street. One person's repulsive because they're so needy, or another person, you want to connect with them. And so it's like, what is that in a person that makes them attractive, not just physically attractive, but makes you lean into what they're saying, like their empathy, their connection, their certainty, like their sense of connection to, and even in sales, they talk about getting rapport. But if somebody's trying to get a connection with you, if they're just trying to connect with you, it's creepy. But if a person is connected to their sense of purpose, and they're connected to themselves, and they own themselves, and then they make a connection to you, it's different, as opposed to somebody connecting to feed energy off of you, or attention, or money, or validation. It's weird. And so what are they connecting to? What's your purpose? And like, to get a sense of like who you are and stand in that, your own identity. And, this law of rapport, people like people who are like themselves or how they want to be. So there's a genuine connection, but they see there's something that you figured out within yourself that is very attractive. And when I started doing coaching, 100% of the people that I coached for years made infinitely more money than me. But I knew there was something, maybe I reminded them of how they were. There was a hunger there where they still wanted to be like me. But in those sales conversations, I wasn't being like a sales douche to these. I was in my 20s and 30s when I started. And I wasn't like, hey, you got to fucking step up, bro. Guys were making like 8 figures a year. There was an empathy, there was a certainty, there was a connection, there was some trust established in this aligned outcome that I was doing this for them, not to them. And I was calling them to a higher standard where even though they had more money or success than me, there were standards in my communication that they thought would benefit them or their organization. And so there was gaps, and people let down their defenses because they saw that even in my challenge was to serve, not to belittle. So that became some of the soft skills.
Just the fact that you said to serve is such a beautiful element to what you're doing, which is essentially you're on mission. And I really resonate because I come from an acting background myself. And I think there was something I heard you say. Yeah, I was professional actor, dancer, bit in the fitness space. Yeah, so I've been through different stages, right? And I think my first phase was really like the victim mentality when I was a professional dancer actor. I used to put on this huge front wanting to be validated and to be accepted in the dance world, with whatever scene I was auditioning for. And it's so interesting how, you play a role or you audition for a role and you feel you have to play the character, but you also want to be so true to yourself that you deserve the role. And I knew that wasn't my world for a really long time. In this fitness phase, professional athlete as a bodybuilder, I was putting on a facade, feeling like that the stage for me was the need to be validated from a physical aspect. But it wasn't until recently now, being in the world of like coaching for business for women, transforming their life from pain to purpose and helping women build an online business, I found my stage because I think I like healed all the layers of who I truly am as a person. And so that authenticity piece that I feel really you're talking about is the art of selling. You're not here just to get people's money. And that's what I love what you're just talking about. You're really here to create impact, but to also show people there is another way to selling, which kind of brings me to my My next question, what is authentic selling and how do you recognize inauthentic selling?
Queen, how often have you said, I spent my whole life studying, I've been to school my whole life, and I've actually learned nothing that teaches me the tools and strategies to build a successful business in the outside world. You've probably spent thousands of dollars on courses, or you've heard fake news from business gurus. Well, I'm here to give this incredible news to everyone here right now that this is Queen Stream University. Get out of debt and actually start making money in the online space, knowing and having the foundations to build a successful business. Now, I'm talking because I have gone through the trenches. I have been a fitness coach, built my online business as a pro athlete, and now I am a business coach. You'll go from having absolutely no idea what your business is through, in the 8 weeks, learn the foundations of knowing what your purpose is, your vision and mission, and also understanding your business values with the execution to know what that business is. You'll also learn branding, social media, content strategy, marketing, and more importantly, how to sell. With Queen Stream University, it'll cut out the bullshit and remove all the fluff and get you working specifically on your business so you can execute this in 8 weeks to get ready to launch. I wanted you to have something where you get to access something straight away, where you get to fast track your growth, as well as remove any doubt, any overwhelming sensation or stress, or the question that everyone seems to ask, where do I begin? With Queen Stream University, you'll be able to build wealth, freedom, and at the end of the day, be an entrepreneur and be able to say, I have finally built my own thing, my own business. And I've stopped making money for someone else, and I'm now making money for my own empire. Queen Stream University.
Well, inauthentic. I think more people are connected to the script, and we're actually just getting off a call with a company, listening to setter calls, and it was brutal. Like, oh my God, just these people. Just really awkward and creepy and script based. And I think scripts are fine. They're like training wheels, but most people are more focused on trying to get it right or sound right or have the right tonality or whatever. And we feel it. Something's off. And I think this sense of like sincerity and empathy and genuine curiosity. I talk a lot about these 3 C's, certainty and clarity. That's have to be there. But I think on the other side, if there was a 3rd C, it'd be curiosity. And like, even if somebody, and so I've done thousands of presentations, and, when I was working for Tony, like, it's one thing to speak on stage now. And it's almost, it feels weird for me now. I speak on stage, people are cheering for me, like people know me, but I did thousands of presentations where I was a salesperson selling salespeople who did not want to be sold, and they knew I was there to sell. So they automatically did not like me. So I was meeting with resistance. So I never had a warm audience. Like for 10 years, like I never had anybody that wanted to hear me speak, and that's most people's fear. Like, what if they don't like me? I just assume nobody likes me here. But I knew they were going to. Like, I had a vision for where I was taking them, and I saw them as a friend. And rapport, I think where most people are trying to get something, like I was giving something, and we want respect or acknowledgement, but leaders go first. So I gave them respect, and I gave them like love. And I think in the deep concept of a relationship, as Mother Teresa said, all communication is a loving response or a cry for help. And if I wasn't getting a loving response, I was giving it. And so there's a classic NLP tenet that says nothing has any meaning except for the meaning that you give it. And even if I had a presentation, and nobody ever said this, but if somebody said, Eli, fuck you, I don't like you, you're a piece of shit, I would be like, okay. That takes some balls to be able to say that to me. I'm curious, have you always had, is that something you developed over time? And so I'm going to be curious, and I'm going to deal with what is. But if they say something negative to me, it doesn't mean anything about me. It says something about where they're at. But also on the flip side, and I think this happens to a lot of people in the acting world or performance world, or even the coaching world with social media, a lot of times too, people get validation. And Equally, if somebody says, screw you, Eli, I don't like you, it means nothing to me. But also if somebody says, Eli, you're the best, I think you're awesome, that equally has to mean nothing to me about me. That also says something to me about them. But I know who I am. I know why I'm there. But my outcome in this conversation can't be to get your validation, just as much as it can't be about the negative thing. And that's what most people don't see. And if we go after the validation because famous person said we're good or somebody says we're pretty or smart or whatever, we end up like a dog chasing a bone. And that takes us off our path. And so we're there. Our outcome is to serve independent of somebody's responses. Now we want to have sensory acuity to know that we're on track or off. And sometimes I might deframe what somebody's doing in a sales call, like shift their belief or challenge them, just like you've seen Tony do on stage. Like he can be quite offensive in what he says, but it's to break a pattern and to create some leverage and to create an opening and to do something completely unexpected, which also breaks the pattern. And so it's intentional looking at the patterns in somebody's communication, how they're responding. Because even if somebody does say something negative to me or positive, it's a pattern of meaning they have that might not be serving them. And so we're breaking a pattern and defining the problem in solvable terms, creating a new alternative, creating a new conditioning. But I gotta change that response to how they're viewing me, how they're viewing themselves, how they're viewing this presentation. So like, hey, this is real. And I just shot some reels for the Instagram. We don't do any so I'm doing this. I don't do any social posting. So we're trying to fix this in my branding thing. But, one of the big things too, because this was one of the questions they sent me. How do you engage a disinterested audience? It's mind reading. I call it mind reading. And I got this from Milton Erickson. And then exaggeration. You're probably thinking and make it like really terrible. You're probably thinking, I'm just here to sell you. This is some piece of shit. You're probably thinking that there's no point in going to this presentation or in fact, any presentation. You might as well just sit there and do nothing for the rest of your life. But that's not true. A part of you realizes that there is something here or there's always something you can learn. So a part of you. So I start to speak to this part of themselves and I'm creating this, this segue. There's something in NLP called parts integration, but I call it something parts separation. Where I say, there's a part of you that feels that way about everything, but I know you wouldn't be here unless there was a part of you that was the least curious. And so I want to speak to that part of you. And so I'm going to deframe. And I say a lot of people have that. And I'm not saying the people that purely think that are hard-headed. I'm not saying they're never going to be successful, but you and I know that people that think that way or think everything's bullshit are often just operating out of a lot of fear and anger that has nothing to do with this moment. So the real question is, what do you actually want? Because you are here for a reason. And I don't just mean this call, you're on this planet for a reason, yes? So I'm starting to see what I'm doing with framing. And so now, and then sometimes too, I would do these coaching sessions with companies and I would teach stuff and the CEO would be like, let's do this and that. And they would throw stuff at me and I'd be like, let's do like a come at me bro session. Or just like throw the nastiest objection or whatever you get, like just come at me, bro, and see how I handle it. And I can handle it linguistically and I can challenge, but there's a sense of kindness and empathy and connection and humor, like who I'm being and connected where I'm not belittling people. Even though somebody's trying to belittle me, there's an energy to it of an empathy and a kindness and a love and a compassion and an understanding for people that are hurting. And sometimes that can come out as an excuse or limitation or anger. And I want to deal with that energy and redirect it as opposed to being reactive to it.
So it's almost like at the start of a call or speaking on stage, you're essentially probing them that this is obviously something that you're doing right now. You are selling to them. So you're almost speaking truth at the very beginning, but you're also calling them out for how they're feeling and thinking. And then you allow them to think differently and get curious, I guess, to the next presentation or the next couple of hours spending with you. I would love to understand more around like some of the, I don't want to say basic reframes, but some of the most, for anyone listening right now who, really wants to understand selling from this beautiful place of serving and, removing obviously, yes, their default belief around ickiness with selling. Like what are some amazing frameworks that you would start to give to the listeners right now that they can start utilizing on calls or from stages as well? Like me.
For one-to-many presentation, we always say Content is developed by context. And so the context or the frame through which they're seeing me. And so in that initial, even in the opening of a presentation, there's a lot of different things I would do depending on the context, where I am. We were just breaking down one of my talks. I did an event recently with Ed Milet and a bunch of famous people. And it's interesting, somewhere in my presentation, I asked, like, who doesn't have any idea who I am? Because it was all famous people. And it was a bunch of like motivational speakers. And so one of the frames that I'll often speak through is called a uniqueness frame. And so one of the first things I said within the first few minutes, I got more engagement than anybody. People were more engaged in my talk than anybody else's talk. But I said, for one thing, I said, look, I'm not a motivational speaker. I'm a trainer. And I think motivation is well and good, but I'm here to train you. And so I'm right there as I'm starting to challenge them. Also, the uniqueness, this is different. I think motivation is good. I know you've seen a lot of great motivational speakers here. I am not that. This session will be completely different than anything else you've seen. So part of what makes something valuable is the fact that it's unique. And most motivational speakers come out, who here wants this? And who also wants this? So you'll have some engagement questions. And with one of the guys that I coach, he's a one-on-one client. He did his first repitch on like 1,000-person stage. And he texts me the day up. He's like, everybody's going the first 2 engagement questions and the audience is fatigued out of it. So we created, he went right into a challenge, pause, and a story. And the audience was hooked. So sometimes you change some things in that beginning based on the context, because the context had changed, being that everybody had heard that before. And we always say a tactic shown is a tactic blown. And if they've seen something like 10 times, it's got to be different. And so I want to basically be able to answer, there's 4 questions on the audience's mind, and how I uncover these will be a little bit different. There's an artistry to it. But typically the audience is thinking, why is this relevant to me? Like, how does this speak to me? The second question is like, why this subject? Then it's why now and why you? And so there's in the most basic way, something to engage the audience. So where are you now? I think some of you are here because of this, potentially problem or challenge. Where do you want to be? Goal, vision, aspiration someday. And so if this is where you are and this is where you want to be, the question becomes, how do you get there?
Yeah.
I believe you get there by subject. And then I start questioning. So if I ever say something that is a belief that I want the audience to adopt, that they might not fully adopt or become skeptical of, like I know they have a question about it. It might be an unsaid question, but I might say something like, public speaking is the most powerful thing you can do for your business. Now, some people might not agree with that. And so as soon as I say that belief, I want to question it. I know the audience is questioning it, so I'll question it. The most powerful thing you can do, public speaking. Now, why do I say that? The reason I say that is, so whenever I have key belief statements that I want to implant, it's installing beliefs in the audience. If I say something controversial or whatever, I'll question my own content. I question myself. Now, why is this so important? Now, why do most people don't realize this? Now, where do most people getting this wrong that they don't even think about on a day-to-day basis? So, I'm questioning. So we call it question control. And if you've studied Tony, maybe not as much as me, but a big part of what he, in the triad, we want to put people in an emotional state that's based upon patterns of focus, meaning, and physiology. At a Tony Robbins event, you get people jumping up and down. On a sales call or whatever, we don't have that luxury of walking on fire and jumping up and down and massaging people and all of that. And so how do I put people in that emotional state? The other 2 ways, focus and meaning. And so right there, I'm asking lots of questions, and I could ask you about your shoes or your mom or the best day of your life or the worst day of your life, whatever we focus on, we feel, but I'm asking a syntax of questions throughout my presentation to direct their focus in a way that's beginning to open them up. And I'm also simultaneously through the stories and the frames, changing their beliefs. And the way that a belief works, the structure of a belief is if then means. So somebody says, well, I don't have money. Okay. What does that mean? They can't do the program. Somebody else says, I don't have money. So that means I need to put it on a credit card. So there's a meaning, there's a cause, an effect, and a meaning. And so I can help them, like, you're not in the place that you want in your life. Maybe there was a different cause. It's not that you're not good enough. It's just that you not learned these skills.
Yeah. Wow.
So I can change the cause and I can change the meaning. And the fact that you're here means you're the kind of person that really cares and wants to do well. listen, you're ahead of a lot more people. Some people out there smoking crack that are just watching TV, but you're here because you have a strong desire in your life. And it all starts with what? Desire. It's the first thing that Napoleon Hill talked about in the book Think and Grow Rich. Who's read that? Desire.
Yeah.
And so I know you've got it. Now that means you just need the next step. You being here, you've got a lot of momentum, and most people lose momentum. They're in a great event like this for 3 days. They go home, they have a book of notes, but no strategy. So they lose all the momentum that they created. I don't want that to happen to you. So also realize that more powerful than getting something is the loss aversion. Cialdini, you're going to lose momentum. You're going to lose everything that you've come here for. You spent all this time and money in being here. You're going to lose all of that. And I'll prove it to them. I say, how many of you have gotten some great advice, gone to a great event like this, taken down a bunch of notes, got some great tips and ideas, and done nothing with it? How many of you done that more than once? All of us.
Yeah.
So I want to guarantee that that doesn't happen today. So if I speak from my heart, if I share with you exactly what you need to do today, do you promise me you'll commit to put this in action? Are you sure? So I'm creating commitment and consistency, and I'm future pacing them. And I'm starting to get them to make small commitments throughout my presentation that's going to set them up for the bigger commitment. Make sense?
100%. It's just, it's nice to hear, because I actually just had my first live event here in Sydney. Sold stage. I'm new to speaking and I'm learning, so I just want to be transparent with that. But I love it because we had 71% of people sign up to my program.
Wow.
But it was interesting. Thank you. I have a new mentors, and it's been really cool. And it's definitely
Did Brody do the repitch for you?
Yes, and that was what I was going to essentially ask you, because he helped me with the repitch.
He's going to send me the recording. I told him I want to see the whole thing. Send it to me if you have it.
That's the one he did.
Text Brody all the time. Yeah, he's great.
Oh, he's amazing. Well, that really resonates with me, because everything you're teaching and saying is just essentially everything he's helping me with, right?
Awesome.
But if you don't have a Brody, right, and someone like myself who's just so obviously new to selling on stage, how do you repitch when you've already pitched and then you've allowed everyone then to sort of marinate, in what you're about to offer, what you have offered? And some people have walked back to the stage, and then other people are still sort of making that decision, right? So he repitched and it was incredible. It was so amazing. But I want to be able to learn to do that.
Well, the thing is with a repitch, and so we meticulously break down events. And I mean, when I did the pitch for Tony at the first live event during COVID, the pitch did 8 figures, not because of me, Tony, obviously brand, all of that, but it was set up in a really good way. But typically, and then we watched Dean Graziosi do the repitch at one of his events at a UPW, and the repitch did 8 figures there. So typically at an event, and it changes a lot. Like I'm about to do my 3rd event with Hermosi, and we helped out Kale Owen, who took over Gym Launch, and he did it. We had 75 possible buying units in the room for a $43,000 offer. We got 74 of them on just the pitch. So almost didn't even need the repitch. But typically, and the offer was killer. Hermosi wrote that. I helped with the delivery of it and some of the frames, and and then my buddy Will helped that. It was an awesome offer though. And the offer is like, it really is an offer where you feel dumb saying no. So that's kudos to them. I learned a lot from the offer and getting to coach on the offer, but it was really, really good. But typically there'll be a strong offer, and the fact that there's limited spots and some scarcity there, but really the offer is generally like a more logical, here it is. And the emotional buyers are going to take it. So at every event you have, in every industry, you have the pioneers, you have the early adopters, you have the early majority, the late majority, and then the slow people. And so also in this room, and these first people are going to take it, and there's like a wave of them. And then some people thinking about it, there's a lot of nuances there, and you'll see people walking around. So and you'll see people that didn't take it walking around, and there'll be groups of like 5. Salesperson, we got to break that up. Hey, and engage them in conversation, break them up a little bit, because they're not going to buy, kind of talking themselves out of it. So we'll break that up. Also at an event, and ideally, you should have the buying units. So like at Gym Launch, there'll be like 600 people there, maybe more, but about half the people are already in the program. So they have a special lanyard on. There'll be guests that own a gym, They'll have a special lanyard on, and they'll be like guests of theirs that work at the gym. So there's owners and then their guests. These are not buying units. And so we want to create a connection and a touch point before the pitch with each one of the possible buying units. And they should have something on where you can differentiate them. And they should, ideally have salespeople call them before the event. Hey, I got a gift for you. Make sure you see me at the event. So there's a lot of touch points in sales. It's not all one call closing. It's a relationship thing. It's touch points, connection, gift, reciprocity, all of that really helps. It typically, the offer is like a logical, here it is. Some people will take it. And then by nature of somebody else doing a great talk and doing a repitch, it works best if it's someone else. I don't know why.
Yeah.
I've got 2 repitches. I got one at the gym launch event. I'm doing it this year instead of Hermosi. And I got one at my friend's event this week in Scottsdale. I got like 8 of them coming up. And so I'll come into events. Sometimes we consult, and I'll do the repitch. And we also train. So I get there early and we train the back of room salespeople. And there's a couple things within the presentation, within the entire event that are the specific content pieces that overcome objections through story and case study. So these make the system really, really good. But the repitch is typically an emotional close and a last minute. And ideally you want to have something that's like an immediate bonus where, hey, in 2 hours, when this event ends, everybody that signed up for the program, we're doing your onboarding party session thing, super sexy thing, and you're getting a free gift. Curiosity inside that begins in 2 hours. Make sure that you got your piece of paper that says that you've signed up because that's your admission into this. This session alone is going to be worth everything that you paid for the entire program. Do not miss it because we're going to be covering this and this and this because listen, your journey starts now. A lot of people put things off and they say someday, but for those of you who are here, this is where it begins and we map out your entire year together. This is going to be crucial. So it's like building the value in that. And it truly is. It's not fake scarcity, 5 sessions, 5 spots left. It is happening in 2 hours and it's going to be a party. And so it's like, it creates more internal pressure. Like I got to get in that freaking room.
No, I love that because for me, I did 24 hours, but 2 hours is that's fucking epic.
24
Thank
is great.
Pardon?
24 is great too, but it's immediate right there. They're like, oh, I want to be in there. It's happening right now.
Yeah, I've written that down. You'll have to come to mine soon when I get, a lot better. But let's get back to what I really want to talk about handling objections a little bit. And I wanted to throw some at you if you feel we have time. Let me
Stage or one-on-one?
Let's do one-on-one, maybe 2 one-on-one and maybe 1 or 2 from stage. So here's one that I actually think would be really interesting. An objection that I remember hearing was, I don't have a credit card. I don't have the money. So I don't think I can work with you now, but maybe later down the track.
So also in this too, it depends on where the person is in the level of relationship. And there's like enemy all the way up to trusted advisor, mentor, family, lover, it's levels of relationship. And ideally, whether it's a presentation. So it's interesting if somebody's cold, you'll get a lot of these objections, but the person's not ready to buy yet. There's not enough trust established. And so like inside of our process, for the sales and speaking, we call it this trust trinity, getting people to trust in you through your story and your style, trust in the process and the product. They're 2 different things. Because sometimes they're starting to sell a product, but they don't even know if they want to be a coach or so they're not even sold in the process. And then the biggest one is getting trust in themselves. But ideally for this example, I'm going to assume there's some trust there where the person is just saying something. And something like credit card, it's like, I say, look, so there's also a frame here that you should remember forever. It's called the best interest frame. Or the coaching frame. I do this all the time. Even if I ask my mom to do something, I put it in terms of her best interest. And so I could use a metaphor or analogy. There's a lot of ways I do it, but I'll give you the soundbite here. It's like, look, Joan, I know the program's 10K and I know maybe we get your credit card, maybe not. I don't know what's going on with that, but I don't think it's fair to you that you have to pay the 10K to start getting coaching. How about I start giving you coaching right now just so you get an experience of it? Would you be open to that? So now
Yes.
I'm framing this as a coaching experience.
Yeah.
And I'll say, look, does a good coach tell you what you want to hear, what you need to hear? Yeah, a good coach calls you on your shit. We know it's fucking 2024. You can get a credit card. You probably have Apple Pay on your phone. You can call your spouse. We can do this. We can call your credit card company. We can do this right now. So is this something you actually want to do, or are you looking for a way out? Because I'm fine for either one. But you have to ask yourself, is this something you're really committed to? Because if you're always going to be looking for an out, you're going to find one. But if you're really committed to you, we can support you in that. And so I'm starting to have this deeper level conversation, and I'd be doing a lot of dialogue in here too. To say, look, we work together for the next year. Like, this is going to happen a lot where I challenge you. And I could give you scripts and, say it's easy, but nobody ever has success in those programs, because here's what's real. In order for you to have success in anything, two things need to happen. Something new needs to come into your life. That could be this program, but also something new needs to come out of you. A new commitment and a new standard that what you hold yourself. So I'm going to hold you to that standard right now, if you're okay with that. Because I'd like to hold you to a higher standard so you could have more in your life, if you'll let me. If you'll let me. Then I give them their power back with that. If you'll let me. Is that something you're open to? Having a real and honest conversation about your financial situation, because I really want to see you do better. But I can't want it for you. Is this something you actually want? So I'll stay in that conversation with them for a while, but it's no longer in the simple frame. So even somebody says, I don't have money, or I don't have much money right now, I need to hold on to it. Look, I'm sure your intention in coming to this event wasn't just to hold on to the money that you have. Your real intention is to make sure you never have to worry about money again. That's the real intention, isn't it? So instead of focusing on what you have, let's focus on creating a process to make sure that you don't have to be in this situation ever again. Because if you don't do something about this now, do you think the problem will just get better on its own, or probably get worse? So the real question is, how do we get resourceful to help you find the money to put yourself in a better situation? That's the real question, isn't it? So I changed the frame. So I changed their intention, because the fact is, and it's true, they could just hold on to the money they have, but that wasn't their intention, or they wouldn't have come. And of course, it should be hard. And look, if we do work together over this next year, I'm going to be challenging you a lot. I'm going to be asking you to post videos. I'm going to be asking you to redo videos. I'm going to say, you need to do this. I'm going to be challenging you. This is what coaching is. It starts right now. Because I want to basically set a standard for our relationship here to get you to access something within yourself that you might not fully believe yet. You might not see it, but I see it. I see something in you that maybe you don't see in yourself. And if we can get you to do what's required over and over again, there's no way you're not in a better spot next year. A month from now, there's no way you're not in a better spot. As opposed to you doing nothing, staying in the same spot. Is that what you want? No, I can't imagine that is. And so I'm digging into it, and the frame, I made it a coaching frame instead of a selling frame.
The best interest frame, which is a coaching experience, essentially, right?
Yeah.
And you also went through future pacing, but then you also brought them to where they are now. And if they continue the way they're going, they're just going to be in the same spot year after year, right? And
it's true. True. Yeah.
Lovely.
These are undeniable truths.
Okay, one more. Okay, time, right? I actually just received this one today. I haven't replied yet. I've just gotten into a TV show, and my husband is worried that if I commit to something else, especially because I'll be filming on a TV show, I'm not sure if I'm going to be at 100% to commit to this program right now because of a time thing. And I've also got other coaches I'm working with.
Hey, beautiful kings and queens. Are you right now in a space where you're ready to take action and build your business, yet you struggle where to begin? You're feeling stuck and overwhelmed with all the things you need to do when it comes to building a business. Build the business of your dreams in the online space and be in the arena of all the incredible, great humans out there that are building 7 to 8 figure businesses. Now, the foundations that I truly believe in that you are going to learn through this membership is sales, marketing, content creation, social media, money mindset, and of course, branding. Now, all of this will be accessible for you to be learning what is currently hot right now in the market and how you can create your own business and build a successful business in the online space. All you have to do right now is DM Empire in my Instagram or email myself and my team, and we will get the ball rolling so you can have your empire and start making moves in the online space.
This one actually, the frame is called a positive reframe, and the popular version of it has been popularized by Alex Hormozy. And this is also another truism. Busy is the best time. What are the chances you're going to get busy again at some point in the future? And so when you do get busy, does that mean that you let all of your dreams go by your business dreams go by the wayside simply because you're busy? And you've heard this before. If you want something done, give it to a busy person because they're in the habit of getting a lot of things done. What we want to teach you how to do is to expand your capacity. When you look at The Rock, this guy's making a different movie every week. He's doing shows, all of it, because he's expanded his capacity. Just like you expand a muscle by stretching it a bit, you also need the right tools for recovery. We're helping you do this within your fitness, business, relationship. And so busy is the best time. And so once we help you when you're busy, when you're not busy, it becomes that much easier because the chances you're going to get busy again with a new TV show or a program. So it's best that you learn this skill set now so that when you get busy again, you have the systems to support you in handling it. So busy is the best time.
That was amazing.
And it's like, and there's other tactical things too, because the fact is, and people have done this too, like asking somebody, look at your phone. How much time a day do you spend on the phone scrolling social media? People like 6-7 hours. Okay. Would you be okay? Like taking one of those hours a day away from that and putting into your business so that we can set you up an asset so you don't have to worry about money anymore. And I know it's uncomfortable to break that pattern, but you are here to make some changes. Yeah. And while you're doing this TV show with what we're going to teach you in business, that simply becomes a platform for attention to leverage this even more. So you have long-term sustainable growth. There are so many people that got on Oprah because they write a book. They got attention. They were on TV and they had no system to actually make money. That is the definition of a one-hit wonder. But when you see somebody in business, in life, in relationship that actually creates something big to support more people, the vision they have to provide service to the world, is they created systems to support them. And while you've got this TV show, you're going to get attention, but this is where you're going to actually make money. And this is all true.
Yeah.
But I would do it, if we were like, if I was really in the, I would ask more questions, with it.
Yeah.
But I just want you to see the frame. And so I'd ask more questions in it and I would bring them to that conclusion. And they would end up telling me that's true. So I'd take a lot of what I just said and it'd be framed as questions instead of statements. There'd be a 50-50 question and statement thing.
No, I love this because a lot of my clients who they're making like 40, 50K months and they're at the phase at the moment where they don't want to be, I don't want to say pushy in the sales call, right? But I think it's just asking the right questions, as you said. Like when they hear the 3 main objections, time, money, belief, right? They go, okay, well, you just let me know when you're ready. See ya. And I think that so many opportunities are missed in that space because you're not holding them to a standard, but also helping them see, one, their own bullshit, but also reframing it from a positive outcome too. So I could talk to you all day. So I know your time is valuable.
Yeah, it's like, and there's these tenets too. It's like, but as the salesperson, you have to believe, like transferring that belief that it's worth it. And hey, this might mean you need to get up an hour earlier. This might mean that you need to like take some weekends and do this. And like, this isn't like, does the program work? It works 100% of the time for 100% of the people that apply it 100%. So it'll work, but will you work it? And are you willing to make some sacrifices? Because you've heard it before. If you're not willing to make sacrifices for what you want becomes your sacrifice. And I don't want to give up on you, but it sounds like a part of you might have given up on yourself. I don't think that's who you really are. And if you're open to it, we can step into a new possibility for you. And I can support you in the process to make sure that you're in a position where you never have to worry about time or money again, because you've got systems that support your dream life. But that doesn't happen by chance. It happens by choice. And I know that might not be an easy choice, but that's a choice that you're faced with right now. And I want to support you and you doing what's best for you. So what do you think is best for you? continue to do what you've done, struggling for the last 3 years? What are the chances you just magically figure it out overnight? Or would you have better chances following a proven process with thousands of testimonials and a team supporting you throughout the way? What do you think is going to give you a better chance? So then it's the, options. So yeah, so it's hard for somebody to say no to that.
That's
and
amazing.
Stay with it. So I'm having a conversation though. And like in real time, this would take, and I'm just speeding through it because it would take like twice as long, at least, because I'd be asking questions and they'd be pausing like, wow, and then they'd be thinking, and then there'd be some agreement and then ask another question, statement, question, confirmation, reframe, whatever they say, I'm going to reframe it. Yeah.
I love what you said prior as well, because it no longer, I believe, the sales process is all about just like the 3 yes commitment. Like there's so much to it now, because I think, do you feel that objections are just, and maybe the buyer's decision is longer, or people just either don't trust themselves or just don't trust who they're speaking to now? Do you feel that it's changed now with sales?
We trust Trinity. It's trust in the speaker, trust in themselves, trust in the process or the product. And they're two different things. But a lot of, we call it identity selling. And a lot of it's selling an identity, because you can sell a product or a service or an action, but selling an identity is the most powerful, and getting them to see themselves in that future pace. And then even going into a transition, the 3 F's that we usually install, freedom of choice, future regret, and future pace. And done eloquently, that really people will take that ride and they'll see themselves in that possibility. And then we'll support them in doing that by getting them to commit to the process.
Honestly, Eli, I would love to keep going with this because you are an absolute legend. But I think for the viewers, listeners watching this, I'm going to be just rewatching it and taking notes. But I think what would be really great, I ask this one question at the end of every podcast, and it's, if you were to give that one key to the listeners, just that one key that will just unlock their empire and just change their trajectory in their life, what would that key be? What would that one piece of advice be?
I think, that answer has changed over the years. I think it's people, as a leader and as a communicator, I think you really have to be connected to yourself. And we are so inundated with tactics and strategies and all of that. And something might work for somebody else, but it's got to feel aligned for you. And I mean, you could take anybody's presentation, transcribe it, and do the same thing, but it would feel inauthentic. And that's what most people do with their sales scripts. And so I think it's the time you take with every question and ask yourself, like, why am I asking this? And people ask a good question and even get a good response, maybe a vulnerable response, but they won't take it deeper. I think it's the process of having, we say there's 3 levels of conversation: surface, action, and identity. And really getting into these deeper conversations, whether it's one-to-one or one-to-many. Who is this person? What are their beliefs, their values, their needs, their wants, their desires, their fears? It's the capacity of really, to take a line from a conversation I had with Tony when I asked him about the process of sales and how he saw influence. He said, to influence somebody, you can't just speak to them. You can't just talk at them, and you can't judge them. He says, you can never influence somebody if they feel judged by you. Even if you're judging yourself, you'll lose the influence because you're not connected. He said, to really be able to sell, you have to be able to step into their world, empathy, but without buying into their story. That's the unique balance: to step into somebody's world and appreciate, but not buy into their limitation. They've already done that to themselves. If you buy into their limitation, you've added no value to their life. The added value you offer, representing me and our partnership with these potential clients and customers, is that we don't buy their fucking limitation. He said, I don't buy the limitation how long they can go without food, how late they can stay up, how intense they can feel, or what they can achieve. And because we don't buy into their limitation, and because we're willing to go there first, and we hold them to that higher standard, and they feel that we care, then and only then we can influence them. And so to embody that, to step into somebody's world and appreciate, to appreciate your customer, to know your customer, to do research on your customer, to make your customer feel known and understood and appreciated. Because it's one thing to understand your person's problem, but to let them, where they understand that you understand. Like you get it, and they get that you get it. And then they're kind of like, they'll try to throw some dumb objection at you. And they're like, fuck, like I can't even say this stupid shit. Because they know that you see through it, and not seeing through it in a way to make them wrong or use this ammunition to sell them. It's like, hey, I see you. I get it. I understand it. Like I've been there before. We work with a lot of people there, but it's like, I think you want more for yourself. And I think it's possible for you, but it's like, is this what you really want? You have to believe it, and it's like getting them to openly, voluntarily step into a possibility that they feel safe enough and guided in to lead them to what they want. And you're really looking out for their best interest, and it's part of that relationship that you have with the empathy and the trust and the challenge, where they feel open to being led by you and challenged by you. It's like, there's countless people out there who I think are very talented. And I've asked other people who are coaches, very high level coaches, like, hey, what do you think of that person? They're like, oh, that person's very talented, but I don't know how I'd feel being led by that person. And I just got off a call, right before this, couple hours ago, with a young man, very talented. And he's very, very talented. He's very successful. And he's got a mentor who's worth like bajillions of dollars. He doesn't really trust his mentor. And he wanted to hop on a call with me, and I'm mentoring him. And he said, it's like, he trusts me. But like when I saw Tony and I worked with him, I was like, that's my fucking leader. Like he says, jump, I say, how high? Like, it's like, I want to be led. And there's people that I think have good tactics and skills, but it's like, that's my fault.
I thought it was mine.
but it's like, they don't feel comfortable being led. And so like, I'm basically getting people to the point where there's enough trust, where I'm not explicitly saying this, but I'm like, hey, we're going to get to a point where you do what the fuck I say. And they're just like, okay, but they know that it's going to be best for them. And I'll land the plane with this. We looked at change, and this is from like behavior science and interrogation and CIA work. There's getting people to change across time. So Michael Jordan said that he never lost a basketball game. He only ran out of time. And so I look at that as the game of influence. So that question becomes, how do I create the most amount of change in the shortest amount of time? Because getting people to make a little bit of change over 20 years, say I'm a fitness coach. And I say, look, I know I can get you in shape. If I go to your house every day for the next 5 years, wake you up, make sure you're in bed, babysit you for 5 years, we can get some change. But that's not worth it to me. Like, I know I can get you a fucking result. But in this conversation, we got to speed up this process. I'm not going to take 5 years with you. We're having this one fucking conversation. So we're going to speed this up right now, and we're going to do a lot in a little bit of time. That's the context, because you don't have time. We're not going to be here 100 years from now. Like, you are going to die. I'm going to die. Like, let's make the most of our lives, of our years, of our months, our weeks, and our moments. This can be a moment that changes your life, but you gotta want this, And so I'm showing them, like, we're speeding up time here. Like, and I look, you can figure it out on your own. Do 10 years of study, do all this, go to YouTube and do all this. That takes a lot of time. What we got here is a process. The whole point of this fucking conversation is to speed up time. That's why you're even looking at coaching. And the fact that you don't have time lets me know that you need this that much more. And so it's like, and if people trust me, there's no fucking way out.
I still am baffled by when people still don't do the work when they're, they've hired a mentor, and it's like, you've got all the tools and answers there, and you're still limiting yourself by not doing it. Don't worry, Eli, you tell me what to do and I'll do it.
I felt that with Tony, and because I had that experience with a great coach, that I think the greatest coach ever. I got results because he told me what to do, and I did them. And I sometimes didn't make sense to me or whatever, but I just did them. And I was like, oh, okay. It's like painting the fucking fence, like waxing the car. It's like when somebody's your mentor or your Mr. Miyagi or whatever. And I've had so many people that were that in my life. For me, people that cared about me saw something in me, and they told me to do stuff, and they guided me, and I did it. Not just because the advice was good, I did it because of who they are. And the example I give people is, if Warren Buffett gave you some financial advice, you would take it. If a bum on the street came up to you and gave you the same exact word for word advice, you wouldn't take it. So people take the advice from you as a coach or a speaker, not because of what you say, because of who you are. And so I let people know very quickly who I am, where they have an experience of me. And some people don't like me. That's fine. I'm not the coach for everybody. But I'm authentically, unapologetically, I'm giving you an experience of me so that you'll feel more comfortable saying no or yes. And then if you do get in a conversation with me and you really feel like this will help you, well, I've got to hold you to that higher standard. But if you're like, no, Eli, you're not the guy for this and that, I'm like, okay, or is that, but sometimes they might say that, but it's like, if they're there and they really want it, well, then it's up to me to do everything I can to hold that person to a standard, which also makes them buy, but they really feel like it's in their best interest. And it really is.
Words. That was probably the best answer for the last question ever. Eli, thank you so much for being on Keys to the
Late for the next podcast. So
I really appreciate it. Where can everyone find you? And quickly just dropping anything that they can then utilize for their own learnings as well.
Wildeinfluence.com is my website. We got tons of free resources there. Eli Wilde _sales is my Instagram. And I'm most active on Facebook. We're just started marketing. I basically have made it impossible for people to find me for the last 10 years. But we have the biggest names in the industry that do 9 figures a year, come to us for coaching. So now we're actually building out all the marketing to support the process. So we've made it hard, but now we have a team and stuff like that. And I'm pretty active on it. So Instagram, Facebook is where people can find me directly.
And you're working with Alex Hormozi and Gym Launch as well. Is that right?
Be our 3rd event together. Yeah. Next week.
So good. So good.
I came up to Alex, I wanted to meet him, and right away he was like, I want to pitch you. Like, he knew who I was and he wanted me to hop on a call with him. He's a beast though. So I'm not coaching him, but I ended up coaching Kale and all of that. So but he knew who I was and he's like, let's hop on a call. So we hopped on a few calls together. Really insightful. He let me know the strategy of what he was doing with his business and offered to help out however I could. And I gave him a couple insights, but he's nobody can touch him. He's great.
Yeah. He's a sick one. Again, thank you so much, Eli. Yeah, and everyone else, Keys to the Queendom, I'm your host, Tamara Meyer. Every week, a new episode with some amazing, inspiring guest speakers. Thank you all.
Awesome. See you. Bye-bye.
I started to realize there were all these identities I had in myself. And when I was dabbling in the life coaching space for me, I started to understand that really what my pain, the thing that I kept hiding, the thing that I kept suppressing, the thing that I was ashamed to talk about was my purpose to share, was my purpose to help you guys. Everyone in this room today is here because you see something in me that you see in yourself. That's it, right? So if you can really bring that into your heart and you think about your ideal clients, if you were to show more of those parts, wouldn't you attract more people that you want to work with?
Inspiring. She brings so much knowledge and resource and information, but also fosters a beautiful, atmosphere of connection.
I felt like I was in a room with some really powerful women.
My favourite mic drop moment was creating impact, showing up so that we can reach as many people as we can.
My key takeaway was having the confidence to just show up.
I wouldn't be where I am today without her and without her knowledge and guidance. And she's made me really believe in myself.
My key takeaway from this is that you should dream big and that you are capable of it, and with the right tools and the right help you can achieve whatever you want.
I love you.